crypto assets. Which one's the best? 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 What's the second best? There is no second best.
Oh, they're saying you don't have audio. Do you not? Hold on.
I was about to say, I was like, I hear TJ.
Is
He
your,
said this is
is you-
Discover Crypto, where we give half our portfolio to our wives,
Check your.
as he has been recently wedded here. Welcome, everybody. Today, we got a lot to break down. U.S.-China trade deal happened over the weekend. Of course, you guys have those notifications on. You would not have missed out on the breaking news. People thought it wasn't real, but it was, in fact, a very real trade deal here. Seeing a massive reduction in both tariffs from the U.S. territory as well as China. But of course, alongside that, we have massive altcoin news that we'll be breaking down today. ETH charts with breakouts taking place here. You guys should see what's happening behind the camera scene. It is like just an absolute crazy technician show. Power reset got you. So looking at the SPX here, guys, $2 trillion. Let me go ahead and show you guys the screen here. You might actually get to see, wow, we're tech issues all across the board. There we go. Behind the scenes, $2 trillion added to the U.S. stock market. This was monumental. After the news from Scott Bessent and, of course, the ambassador out in Geneva, they have added, again, $2 trillion to the overall SPX, the stock market here. Tomorrow, we have the CPI report. 1 p.m. today, we have Paul Atkins speaking from the SEC for the first time. And tomorrow, we have what quite literally could be the biggest tech conference of the entire year. Larry Fink is speaking. The CEO of NVIDIA is speaking. Franklin Templeton is speaking. Bo Hines, David Sachs, almost every single leader in the Saudi-U.S. relations is going to be speaking tomorrow as well. So these next 2 days, absolutely primed to see volatility in these markets. Bitcoin now currently sitting at $103,400 after breaking down here of this pattern this morning. So we got a huge sharp decline, of course, going from about $105,000, almost $106K early last night, to now touching roughly $102K this morning, seeing liquidations kind of bounce back and forth. Luckily, though, we can see the liquidation models here are starting to show a little bit of favor to the upside. So for everybody that has longs out on that market right now, we were just seeing a little bit of liquidation battles here towards that $100,000 level. But now, check this out. $108,000, guys. $109,721. $3.4 billion in shorts would be wiped out. So
well, let me see.
Welcome back to the show here, guys. Welcome back.
Oh, I'm just kidding. Of course, I think we're good to go now.
You are good to go. Yeah.
All right, we're good to go. All right. Well, thank you for handling that, Joshua. Going over the crypto market. Did you happen to look at CoinGecko and all the pumpers and the dumpers?
Not yet. Wanted you to take the role.
All right, so you're going to be shocked and appalled if you're not holding some of these altcoins. Bitcoin is a little down at 0.7%. ETH with the nice pump here, 1.2%. Well, let's just go to the biggest gainers here, because look at that. WIF is up 30%. Pi is up 15%. We're going to cover why Pi might be moving today. And then you're going to see a lot of meme coins. You see Floki pumping, Fartcoin pumping, and Pepe pumping as well. Now, we do have a new trading competition out there. And I opened a 50x long on Fartcoin right before we went live. 49x, you're trying to toggle it a little bit. $50 on 50x. Right now we're up 50%. So I'm liking all the numbers that we're seeing here. We just opened a couple little baby longs. We'll talk more about that trading competition in a little bit. Now look at the biggest losers. Not too much. We're going to see Trump is down, Athena is down, and we're going to talk about Trump in a little bit in the China deals. Now, Josh, you're looking at the stock market. Since we are now past open, are this still moving to the green? Are we still going positive here?
Actually, sorry to get another bounce again here. This is insane. I mean, a $2 trillion market cap add here today. I actually added, you can't see it. It's really small in the bottom right corner here, but the futures market last night on X. Yeah, this was insane. We'll talk about that breaking news here in just a moment as well. 2%, almost 3%, 3%. very interesting here because as we go through the show here today, we are going to break down and talk about the Fed watch because this changes everything in terms of the U.S. bond market and the interest rate cuts, which I'm going to say might not be news you want to hear, but we have to have the conversation now because U.S. bonds are starting to tick higher as well.
Yeah, I got some stuff on that. And of course, we're going to talk about Ethereum. I'm kind of looking at the 7-day pumps here. Look at some of these moves here. Dogecoin, you would think Dogecoin be one of the biggest movers, 38.6, but of the top 10, Ethereum with a 39.3% pump on the last 7 days here. And if you go down to number 11, that's staked, Lido staked Ether. So really Ethereum just smoking the rest of the competition. We do see Chainlink is doing pretty well. Another wrapped Ethereum product, Avalanche, XLM, all doing well. And now people are just look at ETH. ETH last week compared to ETH today. I mean, there's just a night and day difference here. I'm actually almost thinking about bringing .ETH back. I'm not going to do that, though.
No. Well, speaking of, real quick, you got, before we go too far into the show, obviously a lot of crypto news to cover. Everybody's excited about that, but everybody wants to see that finger. DZ, where you been? Update everybody. Oh, there he is, a married man. Got the ring on his finger now.
You got the ring on. Yeah, so I got married. That's why I took a week off. Now, I haven't taken the vacation. We haven't done the honeymoon just yet. We had family in town till about Wednesday. And so, about half the time off, I was still hosting family. Had a lot of people come from out of town, North Carolina, Washington State. A lot of people came from Florida as well. But I feel no different. I was already married in my mind. Once you're committed, you're kind of committed there. But yesterday was also a pretty big day. Shout out to all the mothers.
That's right.
Out there. Yeah, yesterday was Mother's Day. Have you guys seen the price of Bitcoin on Mother's Day?
Yeah.
Every year for the last 15
look at
years?
this list here. Look at this list. Yeah, 2025. Of course, we're looking at $104,000 Bitcoin. Bitcoin was only 60K in 2024. It's 26K. If you go back down to 2012, 2011, seeing a lot of interesting numbers there. So I just want to tell you, chat, you were a bad son or a bad daughter not buying your mother Bitcoin back in 2014, 2013. So what is wrong with you?
Bitcoin's the best Mother's Day gift. There you go.
I
Only
think
$104,000 now today.
Now I do feel a little bit more mature, a little bit more older, but if you're in crypto, you're already being aged very rapidly. This was me 4 years into crypto. People were wondering where the hair went. You get into crypto long enough, that will tend to happen. But let's look at some of the news here. Breaking news. This has happened overnight. The U.S. is cutting tariffs on Chinese goods. Cut them from 145% all the way down to 30% for 90 days. China cutting tariffs from 125 to 10% for 90 days. NASDAQ futures obviously up on the day. Stock market's up and a lot of coins are up. Is this Trump capitulation or a Trump victory in your minds? Because I think the market is saying it's a victory, at least short term.
I think it's very clearly a victory here. I mean, we've all been playing, we've been waiting for this on this channel. We've been watching the kind of the play-by-play here and expecting these negotiations to roll out. Nothing's changed. They are still negotiations. So, in terms of what the White House released, in terms of what this U.S. trade deal looks like, for one, I think most economists are shocked that we even got to this point as quickly as we did with China. So it goes to show that both Chinese officials and U.S. officials don't want these headache of tariffs on the market or on that overall market. And I think there's going to be weeks of more negotiations to follow suit. But Scott Bessent's been kind of hinting at, specifically national security risks and stuff like that in terms of resources that we want to start consuming. So huge step. I think we still got a long ways, though. And I think we're still expecting another 17 announcements from trade partners over the next 2 weeks alongside the UK. So it's almost just this recipe that just keeps making it better and better here. And
there is another side of the coin. This is kind of clever. Some are saying it's the art of the kneel. Okay, I think that's kind of funny. Representative Eric Swalwell, Trump caves on China. He's saying we did this, the people. I do have a question. Some that say it's not a victory. It's a capitulation. Trump's losing to China. What does victory look like then to these people? Because to me, this seems semi-victorious.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely victorious. The main thing that's like a victory means that the tariffs on the U.S. come down, and that's happening. And it's only happened for the next 90 days. We have to see how it sticks and kind of what the final deal is. But I think they if I had to guess, just knowing how negotiations work and stuff like that, they probably got 70 to 80% of the way through this negotiation. Like, it's almost done. They've got some timing issues. They've got some finer points to work out about kind of how it will scale into time. But for the most part, they've got the big points worked out, and that's why they were willing to agree to this for 90 days and give ourselves some time to work out the smaller details. But the bottom line is what we had before was very high tariffs on the US and no tariffs, from the US on China. Now we've got dramatically lower tariffs on the US from China and some tariffs.
We do have breaking news.
Oh,
Donald
what do you
Trump
got?
is doing an emergency press conference if we want to.
He's doing it right now.
Yeah, it's an emergency one. Don't know what it's about.
All right.
but
Well, we'll
it's
keep
right
you
there.
up. We'll have the show notes for that, the speech notes on that one. I do want to just break down this Chinese deal a little bit further here. U.S.-China trade deal could shed a lot of light on Bitcoin's use case here. And just some interesting analysis here on, is it a risk on? Is it risk off? How should it perform? So the price reaction to the trade deal could give insights. Is Bitcoin being used as a safe haven asset or not? So following the plunge to 75K, barely a little more than a month ago, Bitcoin recovered strongly, trading 27% higher by the end of the month. Meanwhile, S&P and NASDAQ, they continued to decline in April. So people at the time wondered, could Bitcoin's strength come from the narrative countries are using Bitcoin to bypass tariffs? Well, the analyst said the opposite should theoretically occur if a trade deal is confirmed. So let me say that again. So theoretically speaking, if trade uncertainty is what made Bitcoin outperform, it should stop outperforming after we hit the most important deal, which does include China. But however, if Bitcoin keeps doing its thing and keeps outperforming, it's safe to assume the tariffs will have little impact on how Bitcoin is treated or used. And I think that's just an interesting point. If it's should pump because countries don't want to use the dollar, well, shouldn't it dump if Bitcoin's if countries start signing trade deals? So I don't know, something maybe to think about there. Now, Josh, are you staying in touch to see if we get any kind of breaking news from this?
Yeah, so essentially right now, I can pull it up here. We don't have to listen to it, but I'm just listening to it on the back end here. Just announcing the US trade deal here. Just major steps into it. Came out and said that Scott Bessent said that China said they ignored their trade commitments under Biden because he was weak. That was one of the big statements. But right now it just seems like that it's just in terms of moving forward with these negotiations with China, and that's opening up here. I'm still listening to it. There's about he's been live for, holy smokes, an hour here. Did not realize he's been live for so long. He's doing the press conference now. So it's really just going to be, looks like, more considerations with the actual overall trade deal. And then there was some announcement towards the end of this with the press asking Trump about Stramer from the UK. The UK Prime Minister came out and said that the UK is becoming an island of strangers, and they want to close their borders now. So we'll see what happens out of this. I'll give you guys more notes on the press notes, what actually affects the markets. But right now, it just seems like it's kind of jumbled all over the place. So we'll keep you up to date.
All right, Biden was weak. They didn't give him the meth before that point, because I've seen him come out. He's like fiery, I mean, there's basically flames coming out of his eyes. Just depends on his energy. But speaking of energy, Bitcoin also might have the energy to get to $150,000 now off this rally as U.S. and China agree to start slashing tariffs. And so it broke 105 after they agreed to some sort of deal. Now we have a confirmed bull flag breakout on the weekly chart and is projecting $150,000. Now I found the bull flag pennant. This is what they're looking at here. They're looking at basically the wick down to here on the weekly chart. This is that first week of August. We all remember that. There's a bloodbath for the altcoins here. And now we got a little confirmed breakout on this bull flag pennant. So let's go ahead and measure this from the breakout. And if this technical analysis plays out correctly, yeah, you're looking at $149,000 Bitcoin if that plays out. Now, so the bulls cheering the major development of the tariff talks here, with Bitcoin climbing to 105,700 for the first time in 4 months, further confirming the bullish continuity here. So over the weekend, Scott Bessent and Chinese Vice President He Lifeng struck a deal in Geneva to reduce tariffs that had crippled bilateral trade for months. Under the deal, we already talked about this, lowering from 145 to 30, China reducing 125 to 10. But Bitcoin, often seen as the high beta risk asset, had suffered under the weight of this trade war, with increasing investor caution suppressing the inflows. The truce now signals improved liquidity and risk appetite, conditions historically favorable for Bitcoin rallies. And so I'm feeling just very, very bullish here. And now it's almost becoming euphoric for some analysts here. European head of research at Bitwise noted that the crypto asset sentiment index had reached its highest level since November 24. A warning signal here. This level previously aligned with local market tops. Now, I did want to zoom in on this a little bit. If you go straight up from this spike, we went higher for a little bit longer, weeks, months even. You look at this little spike, went higher for a little bit longer. I kind of ran it out on a different computer screen, a little easier to see, but still range pretty flat. And if we just go back to say maybe the previous one before that, we did go higher a little bit longer. So it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to reverse today, reverse tomorrow, but we are getting a little euphoric. And Josh, you know all about that fear and greed index too, don't you?
Yes.
You're still listening.
Yeah, I'm just seeing what the
plugged in.
Yeah, I'm plugged into this trying to get the breaking news out of this, but it's just a total reset with China. They agreed to stop the fentanyl issues that are taking place. It's all positive stuff, So I'll keep up to date on that and hopefully get a more restricted. He just said, a friend of mine who is a businessman, very, very top guy, most of you would have heard of, highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. So he's talking about right now, he's talking about the pharmaceutical executive thing that, or
I thought he was talking about Chris Christie.
And he goes, I said it's not working. Yeah, it's just Trump being Trump right now. So we'll get back to that here in a little bit. We'll look for the clip.
Is he doing the weave?
Or
is that his hair? I don't know.
Maybe
now
a little bit of both.
You said
Maybe
we're plugged in 2025. Who's known as being the Bitcoin plug?
Michael Saylor.
Michael Saylor. Well, let's talk about MicroStrategy, everybody. Strategy making a $1.3 billion Bitcoin buy. They've now added another 13,000 Bitcoin. If you look at their total, 568,000. And so they've acquired this for 1.3 at an average price. Good job, Michael. $99,000, basically 100K even. Typically, seems so often when we see that he buys on a Monday, you're like, did you buy like the 2 a.m. Saturday morning wick? Like, how'd you get in that high? But he got in a little bit lower, 99K. So 568,000 Bitcoin, now worth over 59 billion based on the current price. The average purchase price is now adjusted to $69,287. Look at this photograph. That's right. Doesn't it look like that guy?
I thought it was XQC for a second.
Yeah,
also a little XQC there. But now let's kind of roll to two other companies acquiring Bitcoin, and it's just Monday, folks. Metaplanet now holds more Bitcoin than El Salvador. They bought 6,796 Bitcoin, which isn't that bad when you consider it's basically half of what Michael Saylor got over the weekend there. So they've now pushed their total holdings beyond those of El Salvador. And so they have, they got theirs 101 per coin. They only got 1,200 over the weekend. And so now they have almost 7,000, average purchase price 91K. And they only started this accumulation strategy in April 2024. Now, El Salvador, sixth largest nation state holder of Bitcoin. Theirs worth about 642 million, but probably most bullish of them all, Coinbase is buying Bitcoin, but they're saying don't call it a treasury strategy. Now, this had to be eked out of the earnings report here. Someone had to ask about this. So they just got $150 million in crypto, mainly Bitcoin, and now their portfolio is worth $1.3 billion. So they've had their own strategy for Bitcoin, but it's not a Bitcoin maxi play like it is a strategy. On their 2025 earnings call, the CFO revealed they had purchased $150 million in crypto, predominantly Bitcoin. Now they have 25% of their net cash in crypto, but they had to squeeze that out of them, basically. So they're allocating profits from operations back into crypto. But in fact, they didn't even trumpet the purchase in the shareholder letter. The news only surfaced in response to the shareholders' question about accruing hard crypto reserve assets. Said they didn't basically they're not dabbling in crypto. They are crypto. So good job, Michael Saylor. Good job, Metaplanet. And good job, Brian Armstrong of Coinbase. But I like how Coinbase basically secretly accrued Bitcoin. They kind of buried it in some legalese on the earnings report. And someone said, hey, what do you mean by this? They're like, we bought $150 million worth. That lets me think lets me know there's a lot of companies probably secretly accruing Bitcoin, especially on the private side. And now this kind of details, even with public companies, with public filings, with public letters to the shareholders, they could still try to sneak in some Bitcoin purchases. So all this very, very bullish for Bitcoin. Up only. And I saw someone have a super comment. The Bears are in the sane asylum. I don't think they're maybe are the Bears in shambles? Josh, are they in shambles?
Yeah,
right
they
now?
are. Dude. 4 weeks ago, they were screaming recession. Now they're Look, I don't know. We've been saying this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's like you can look at the comments under our videos 4 weeks ago when we're saying that we're not entering recession. Markets are going to be back soon. We're going to have a great April. We're going to have a great May, etc. And they're in the comments like angry. You're wrong. Like it's going to 60. It's going to 55. You guys are going to ruin people's lives. And it's like now these people are nowhere to be found because it's just they have nothing to stand on. There's nothing to come back from this. Not only are they incredibly wrong, they need to admit that. And it's a very scary thing. It's like there's a lot of people out there that are still producing content that 4 weeks ago were telling their entire audience to sell and walk away at the bottom of the market after missing the entire bear market and buying the top in November. And maybe it's because of TDS, maybe it's because of misguided information, maybe it's because of just I don't even know. I don't even know at this point. Maybe it's because of views that they get off fear mongering. Moving forward here, I think what needs to really matter here is bears just forget about them at this point. It's the adoption scale that we're about to see with Bitcoin is only upside. We've been saying this for months and months and months and months. Nation states, Bitcoin strategic reserves. I'm out at the floor committee in the House of Florida talking with representatives and senators on how to establish 10% of state tax revenue to be allocated to Bitcoin, right? New Hampshire, Arizona passed. All the rest are going to be amended in 39 different states. The supply shock that is coming is monumental. And if you're not prepared for that for Bitcoin, you need to understand that that's going to flow into all of these altcoins. And we might not get that true alt season that we saw in 21 or 2018. But if you're not researching and focus on tokenization or RWAs or these parts and segments of this industry, DeFi, et cetera, borrowing, lending, that are going to take advantage of it, you're just going to miss out. And at this point, I just don't feel bad for the Bears. Are they in an insane asylum? Maybe they should be. But, luckily for you, the last presidency pretty much banned insane asylums in the United States. So they could just walk around on the streets.
Reagan actually is known for gutting
I think
the mental health
did Newsom
institutions.
get rid of like 40 of them in California over the last 5
Have you ever
years.
seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, chat? Have you seen that? Have you seen that? Maybe a little old. It's older than Fight Club.
Yeah. I don't think I've
older.
seen that. I've heard of it, but I don't think I've seen it. But
yeah, it used to be pretty crazy. They would just dose you up, and then you have to have a big Indian throw a chair through the window. But let's talk about Google here. Google searches. This shocked me how crazy the Google Trends was for Bitcoin. So Google searches for Bitcoin at 16,000 levels, 16K levels, but now we're at 104K. Also, Goldman Sachs bought another 28% of BlackRock's ETF. They're now the largest holder. And Vanguard went from protecting investors from Bitcoin to secretly stacking $7 billion worth. Also, exchanges, they end up selling 110,000 Bitcoin last month. But hey, what do I know? I had to double check this for myself. This is Google Trends Bitcoin the last 5 years. So you can see the April peak here in 2021. We still have not hit this April peak. Even in November, when Bitcoin hit a new all-time high, failed to do as well. And even after Donald Trump was elected in November of 2024, also failed to do as well as Bitcoin hit new all-time highs then. But now when you look at Google Trends, this lets me know retail still on the sidelines, retail still not buying Bitcoin, retail probably going to flood in, and they're going to flood in very quickly, and they're going to do the same thing they did right here. They're going to start buying when Bitcoin hits a new all-time high, but we're trying to allocate you ahead of that. But now let's look.
When do you think it spikes? 110, 115? When do you think retail gets?
Here's a lot of 120.
Yeah, it's usually typically it probably will be around 120, and we'll probably make a fast move above all-time high. It's usually when we make new all-time highs. It starts to make new headlines. Oh, Bitcoin's back above 110, 120, 115, all that sort of stuff. It's interesting. Speaking about Google Trends, Lark posted this wrong button. As well about retail. So Bitcoin's sitting near all-time highs. Yeah, Google searches are flat. Oh wait, this is kind of what you were just talking about. This is not the one I meant to pull up. There's another one he posted showing retail starting to come back. Searches for the misspelling.
Oh, I saw that
of Ethereum, ETHERIUM, where that's how a lot of people, Ethereum. For whatever reason, a lot of people spell it that way, and those searches are starting to tick back up again, which shows that people that have absolutely no experience are starting to be like, hey, what is this Ethereum thing that's pumping? But I did want to say,
pull this up.
I'm gonna misspell Solana.
Yeah, it's interesting how people nitpick, right? And like pick all these little details. We more or less called the beginning of alt season to the day. I posted this over the weekend saying that when the Treasury was buying these bonds, now again, they were restructuring, rolling them over. Some people would argue that technically wasn't QE, but the Fed basically added $35 billion on their balance sheet in Treasury bonds. And then it wasn't the next day that we started to see alts pumping again. And I really do believe alt season is when we're in a risk on environment, when the Fed is adding to their balance sheet, when rates are coming down, which rates haven't come down yet. Printing hasn't started like crazy yet. You could say that technically wasn't maybe QE, but it was less QT, which to me is enough to say, hey, we're moving into alt season. I was very loud about saying, do not sell in May, do not walk away. Now's the time to be getting into these markets, and altcoins specifically, I think, could really start to outperform. And we've seen that start to happen. Now, that doesn't mean Bitcoin isn't going to make several other legs up. I'm still calling for a 200K Bitcoin this cycle. And we're going to see altcoins perform extremely well during that time. But I think this summer is going to be altcoin, it's going to be fun time to be in altcoins. Still very heavy in Bitcoin. But yeah, now is a good time to get your positions in. We already know the Disco fam. Most of you guys are already in some of the strongest ones out there, but just wanted to come back and re-echo that. Like, a lot of people they're gonna miss the forest through the trees. They're gonna get caught up on nitpicky details about what this person said or what Trump's doing or what China's doing, and it's like, okay, that's great, but just zoom out and play the macro play, and you guys should do well. From DZ's Peanuts, just want to get this out of the way for the rest of the noobs. Is this a good time to buy? What do you guys say to that question?
Well, I think, with that is like, I don't think right now I mean, look, I think you dollar cost average into it, but it's like we were building our portfolios massively. You were literally trying to sell your house and cars like 4 weeks ago. It's like we were built Chainlink, Ondo, everything. Like we were rendered, Neo or Tau, like every channel on Aerodrome. Like we were accumulating. So we're just like so well positioned at this point. That is the point we're trying to make across this table right now. We had like 8 weeks of accumulation between February and March, where it was just nonstop. Like, guys, we're not going to enter a recession. We're not entering a recession. We're accumulating. These are great ranges. We're down 80%. We're down 90%. Like, these are where you dollar cost average. And so like now we get to not only be excited with this move, but as alongside Discover's, family here as well. A lot of people in the chat fall alongside with that. Our portfolios are positioned and primed for this next leg up. And so it's like most people can take even profits at this point. It's like, that is the point we're trying to make here, is like, now if you're coming into this, like, look, whether we go to 120 or 200K this cycle is like, we just moved from 75K back to $105,000 in the time span of 4 weeks. And so it's like, now as we get to be a part of this market, our risk factors are massively mitigated and we get to enjoy this move here. And so that is what I wanted to bring across the table there, was just like months and months and months of accumulation. And you guys know this, we're saying this at the bottom of the market when everybody's telling you to sell. Well, guess what? When we're back at 110, 115K, 120K, people are going to be asking us, is this the best time to buy? The best time to buy was when everybody was fearful, when they were screaming recession, when you had Larry Fink saying, oh, this is going to be another negative quarter of GDP growth, and then turn around 2 weeks later and be like, oh, my bad, guys. This isn't as bad as we saw. That was a prime accumulation opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I would say this isn't the best time to buy. The best time to buy was 2023, 2024. Yeah, 08, yeah, 09.
Well, that's true.
I was saying below 80.
Yeah, below 80. So that's the best time in recent history was when we were, to Josh's point, we were screaming buy, 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 go all in with everything you have when we were under 80K. We were saying under 80K was a gift. Is it still a good time to buy? In my opinion, yes. If you're new to this now and you're like just getting started, in a lot of ways, getting started into a bull run, it may kind of mess you up with your expectations, but it is one of the best times to get in, because it's gonna be on, the market's gonna be on easy mode for the next 6 months plus. So get in, enjoy the ride, pick things you like, learn a lot about crypto. So it's in my opinion, it's almost always a good time to get out of the dollar. That's kind of the way I look at it. It's a good time to get out of the dollar because the dollar isn't doing great. It's a great time to get into hard assets. It's a great time to get into commodities. It's a great time to be looking at Bitcoin related securities, and because they've all been massively outperforming the market for the kind of this whole run. So
yeah, we got people, even if they're on the sidelines, maybe they're staking on some DeFi. It looks like that Plume pool is doing pretty well on Uniswap. That was pretty good there. We also have this super chat from Antonio. Financial conditions are tightening like Q4 last year. With DXY, the strength of the dollar and yields rising, that can lead to the next Bitcoin and crypto correction mid-July, mid-August. I like that timeline, give us a couple months to pump. And let me go to that timeline with the M2 money supply here. The craziest chart in all of finance, the correlation of Bitcoin and M2 is staggering. We're telling you the pump is going to be coming. The pump's going to be coming. Looks like the pump did come. I did do Solana misspelled. Solana. My Solana actually peaked in January 19th, 2025. Do you know what launched around that time?
Trump coin.
That is
coin.
gosh darn right. What do we look for? The peak right there, January 21st and January 19th, 2025. So retail definitely on the sidelines. M2, definitely still some move to run. And so if is a good time to buy now, I would say yes. But if you're looking for short-term profits,
What was the
feel free to
beginning
take
of that
them.
run? What was the beginning of that run in November? If you go back to that chart right there.
But the
I just-
Solana?
Yeah,
Or-
I just want to. Yeah, Solana. I'm sure it's the same on all these charts, but that
Oh, this
first
is
run up there,
misspelled.
November
Yeah.
5th. Go to the November 5th though. Is that November? Yeah, it is November 5th.
Yeah, you can see it. Well, this is like a week lag there. So yeah, so it starts to spike that November 3rd to November 9th pump there.
Yeah, I was just
Altcoins are
curious 'cause
running.
that, like we haven't seen a retail movement. is
How the
what
heck
that
do I
shows.
buy Solana?
Solana?
Millions
Solana
of people
Beach.
typing that. Thousands at least. All right. So M2 looking incredible. Also looking incredible. This is from Kobayashi. We're talking about the rates here. So Trump raises
Yeah,
tariffs. Well, yields
important.
rise because inflation's back. All right. Well, Trump will cut the tariffs. Well, yields rise because growth is back. Oh, son of a gun. Well, how about I do nothing? Yields rise because the Fed won't cut rates. Today, the bond market becomes Trump and Bessent's top priority. So I wouldn't be surprised. I do agree with this take. Bessent, definitely in tune to the yield market, how the yields should be going. And we do want to see lower yields. Now, there's allegations. Powell is, he suppressed it for Biden right before the election. And now he's keeping it artificially inflated because, maybe Trump has criticized him. I don't think anyone knows. And then we're trying to get into mind reading territory.
Well, it also the China U.S. deal completely throws out a Fed rate cut until September, which that was a big monumental take over the weekend. The fact that they're pushing it for 90 days. So what everybody's worried with now here is like the derivatives market are now betting on this. They completely folded over the weekend. Where if a trade deal were to be announced and it was just like, okay, clear cut, we're gonna get reduced tariffs, perfect, maybe rate cut June, July. But with the 90-day perspective now. Jerome Powell's been doing one thing and one thing only every single meeting. And he's saying, we're going to wait and see. We're going to wait and see. And now that there's 90 more days added to the wait and see factor of this that's where markets are going to say, maybe we're not going to get a 75 basis point cut 25 basis point cut now till September, which would still leave us room for 3 in the year, which has still been the take. We thought it was going to be more slow in terms of
we're starting to see
one in June,
yeah,
1 September, 1 December. But now it's more like we're going to see it just kind of curve on a longer.
Look at the
bend
odds
here.
for no change. This is only just the last month here. So the odds that we get a rate cut next month in June, we got as low as 39%. We got as low as 39% a month ago. Now you fast forward to today, we have 90% odds we're not going to get a rate cut. So very, the markets are saying no.
He's not going to. But yeah, again, like the Fed should just cut. Like they're massively behind. It'd be beneficial to the markets, but we're not going to get that. So it looks like we're going to see this now. If it's 90 days, that is going to be a 90-day extension easily on rate cuts. That's just something people should be prepared for.
All right. Well, Trump's sons, those goons, they've got into more crypto deals here. And this is kind of a big movement. Some we reported on about a month ago where they're teaming up with Hut 8. So the Trump family backed American Bitcoin to go public with a merger with Gryphon Digital. And it says Trump family. I think it's just Eric and Don Jr. here. And so American Bitcoin, it's Hut 8's majority owned unit backed by the Trump family. They're going to go public with a merger with Gryphon Digital Mining. So shares of Hut 8, they jumped 12%. Shares of Gryphon Digital Mining soared 200% following the news. And so American Data Center, it's owned by Eric and Don Jr., merged with American Bitcoin in March. So the Trump brothers own 20%, while Hut 8 owns 80% here. And the merger is expected to close as early as Q3 2025. I'm not saying Donald Trump's going to pass favorable legislation. We're going to have a favorable landscape for the Trump sons, but I'm not betting against Bitcoin with, literally the president's sons are going all in on crypto, all in on Bitcoin. You're choosing to be bearish at this point with M2 money supply, trade tariffs starting to get a lot of deals, hundreds of deals rolling in. I just can't match your sentiment. I'm forever going to be a bullish in this type of environment. Maybe we'll switch gears there.
No, I agree. I mean, it's also Larry Fink, right? Like, so if you could argue, if you had to name 1 or 2 people that control markets outside of the central bankers like Jerome Powell. Yeah, exactly. Outside of the obvious players.
That's crazy.
You gotta bet on Larry Fink, right? And you see the richest, best capital allocators in the world going all in on Bitcoin, and you're buddy at the gym says it's a scam. You know, your ex-father-in-law, whatever, says, oh, it's not going to work out. It's like, actually, I think I'm going to put my money where Larry Fink is.
But meanwhile, the guy that does like the digital security for the chain of gyms,
right?
He's all in on Bitcoin.
Exactly.
So I'm listening to that guy.
Right.
I'm listening to the nerds.
I would also just you got to realize Donald Trump Jr. like they were raised by Trump, so like is legislation going to favor them? I think 100%. Like because
they're raised by
their
the mean
business
streets of New
mentality-
York.
The mean streets of New York.
Yeah, the
high-rise apartments in Manhattan.
Yeah, right. With private drivers. And
I think they follow the art of the deal pretty closely, and legislation is going to follow suit with that. So, like I said, like you said, I wouldn't bet against it.
You mean art of the deal?
People? Yeah, people that are like betting against that is like you still have him as president for 4 years. That's a lot of executive orders. Have you seen how many he's passed in the first 100 days?
Part of it, you see how few bills Congress has put upon his desk. I think it's like the lowest in recent memory. Maybe 100 years. Yeah, he's only signed 2 bills, I think, because they've only given them. So Republican
he's gonna
Congress,
be like Javier
you
Milei,
suck.
afuera. Like he's just gonna keep firing these agencies.
Just get Mitch McConnell out. The guy literally reboots in live time. So get him out. Get him out.
You see Maxine Waters over the weekend? She was reading her paper,
shaking in anger like a twig over something.
Chat, who's the? I don't even.
Was she shaking like she was in a meeting with Zelensky and
shaking,
Macron?
stuttering, and then had to like keep restarting.
Did she have to hide a baggie and cover a line on a table?
She needed a baggie. Yeah. She needed a baggie.
Well, she could have called up Hunter. All right, let's talk about altcoins here. Let's see. Dog with hat and pie leading the crypto rally is. Look, he clearly was. Anyways, Bitcoin blink. So I wanted to talk about why Pi might be moving. You saw it was one of the biggest movers today. Pine's run came after Pi teased a major ecosystem update on the 8th. It dropped hints around an announcement. So they had an announcement of an announcement, and I'm not trying to be funny here. Announcements where you actually say what's happening typically creates red candles. Announcements of announcements keep green candles until that announcement, because once you announce what it is, that's when you get red candles. Anticipation is the oxygen of an asset. So as soon as you're like, hey, we're doing this super bullish thing, people are going to, I thought it was going to be more bullish though. So I'm going to sell.
Especially in crypto.
Especially in crypto. We always have sky high expectations. Expectations always going to be much higher than where reality is going to land there.
Are you saying Pi is the liquid death of crypto?
Isn't that like Bitcoin forks would take that role first? Hex.
It'd be it's an interesting thought. I don't know. You're right there. That's like they hacked the code. It's make an announcement of the announcement you pump.
Yeah. That's basically
make an announcement of the actual announcement you drop.
Especially if you traded NFTs in 2021. You definitely saw that. Like we have an announcement of announcement. It got to the point where it was a meme.
Yeah. You'll be tomorrow's announcement's gonna be life-changing. Pumps. Announcement happens, dumps.
Yeah.
It's that's the cheat code there.
That is the cheat code. So they do have an announcement of an announcement. The announcement's going to be unveiled on May 14th. It's only about 2 days away. And the founder, Nicholas, is set to deliver a speech at Consensus 2025 in Toronto. I don't want to say that incorrectly. Meme coins also pumping. Whiff and Floki bag the most gains in the category. Doge and Shiba Inu are also up, pretty respectable percents there, 6% and 8% there. So we're seeing a lot of pumps.
Do we go short Pi? We shorted Pi from $2. That was a pretty insane short.
I hesitate to short coins that have alleged market manipulation. So apparently market makers have done a lot to move the movement of that token. And so part of the design of a market maker is crush all the leverage bets. And so I'm probably just going to, it's hard to counter trade that. Like, well, I feel like most people will long, so here's where I short. But what if 52% of the people have that same thought? Then you should have long because most people think you should short. So just be careful with those allegedly manipulated tokens there.
Yeah, Steve says the announcement's going to be only 5 ads on Pi app instead of 10.
That'll pump because sometimes bad news makes it pump too. I don't know. It's just weird how it works. Hoskinson, let's talk about Cardano here. All right, I got the Cardano mention in. Okay, all right.
There you go.
Move the Apache. You don't have to hover above me anymore. Hoskinson says integrating Cardano with XRP and Bitcoin will quadruple its total value lock beyond Ethereum and Solana combined.
Wow.
Not quadrupling ADA's TVL, quadrupling ETH and Solana's TVL combined. So very, very bullish here. And so the founder revealed how he intends to solve some big problems with the XRPL and Bitcoin ecosystems. He said Ripple does have a large ecosystem with sufficient funds, and XRPL powers most of the technological solutions. but there's limitations around smart contract functionality on XRP. He also said these limitations have hindered developers from doing much on the XRPL. However, he suggested that a computational layer could be grafted on top of the XRPL. This could allow RWAs and banking relationships to enter in the XRP ecosystem. And he said the growth would also come from XRP and Bitcoin. He noted that the outlook is achievable when the team behind Cardano does things for Bitcoin and XRP, like integrating both assets into their privacy sidechain Midnight. So he's saying Bitcoin, XRP, you're definitely going to be Cardano smart contract layers.
I do got some alpha for that because I got to meet with the Midnight team in Dubai.
That's right. That's right. I'm jealous, man.
A lot of exciting stuff there. But I think their snapshots will be coming out soon. So I think if you hold XRP or Solana or Cardano, go look on their website, but you will qualify for that airdrop.
And apparently Lace Wallet, which used to be known as Nami, I've done Nami tutorials. So if you listen to those Nami tutorials, you definitely have a Lace Wallet. It apparently has XRP integration. I'm assuming, and I don't know for sure, there's no details out. I'm assuming if you put some XRP on that wallet, maybe you up your allocation, maybe you up the odds. Something I might be doing soon.
It'll be a massive
I'm gonna market buy XRP.
It just makes sense.
Finally,
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's been a while.
I mean, I haven't held XRP forever since I sold it at 70 cents, but yeah, I mean, this just makes sense. And Charles has been talking about this for a very long time, ever since we had him on the channel for that first interview as well. It's just like, there's been so much tribalism within these markets where if you just took a step back and realized, well, okay, if we work together, this creates more TVO, more utility, more application. It's better for ecosystem growth. So why try to choke off every other outlet? Like if you're a competitor, rather than just join forces.
Yeah, straight Adam here. He's super straight. All my Cardano staked on Coinbase. I would maybe look into self-custodying. I don't know if you're going to get all the airdrops. Do we remember how the XRP
no, you usually
Flare airdrop
you
worked?
didn't. I don't think you did get it through Coinbase. Most oftentimes, it kind of depends. Sometimes an exchange will support an airdrop if it's big enough and well aware enough. But oftentimes, if you're holding your assets on the exchange, they keep that airdrop. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, tell you what, I'll try to reach out to them, pull them on here too as well, so we can have them explain again. Maybe get the good old Chucky Ho here. Eventually back on the channel too, just to talk about privacy, because this was a weird token, by the way. Like the event was very weird. It was not retail at all.
Token 2049 is what
it was completely different than last year's, which was like all about altcoins and degeneracy, and like you had Brett walking around like literally giant meme coin figures. This year was straight up tokenization and privacy, and it's because all the people that are tokenizing are all these institutions, and all these institutions want the Coca-Colas, they want the Pepsis, they want the Nikes, they want all these big companies to come into the tokenization field. The problem is to bring all these massive corporations into the massive institutional world, you need to protect the privacy of retail. And so how do you do that? And in this case, Midnight's one of those opportunities where it's like a privacy layer that keeps you safe. So if you have a non-custodial and you're connecting that and buying things on blockchain, I can't go, and when I was talking to the Midnight guys, it made like complete sense. For example, his example is this. Let's say DZ's into, crazy romance, murder, mystery, very sexual vampire diary books, right?
Obviously.
Obviously, we all know the obvious answer to this, but maybe DZ doesn't want the world to know that. So he doesn't want Starbucks to know when he pays for $8 worth of a coffee, that all of a sudden they can look into DZ's on-chain library and go, man, this guy's got some weird kinks, So there's this privacy aspect that needs to be established on all these different L1s. And that's exactly what Charles was talking about when he came on our channel a few months ago.
Yeah, and take it to an institutional level, right? I mean, a lot of these businesses, a lot of what they're doing, buying, allocating, whether it's raw materials, they're using these raw materials to build certain things, and your competitors could get insights from looking at your flows of business. So it's like, imagine if you are a Coca-Cola, Ford, NVIDIA, and all of a sudden you're tracking what NVIDIA is doing, and you notice, they bought $100 million of raw materials from this country. Maybe we should look and see what they're doing over there and what they're going to be using those materials for. Maybe we could make some competition for them in this market where there isn't competition. There's a lot you can glean.
And always like the KFC example, you can see, you bought from Paprika Inc. I'm figuring out your 11 herbs and spices.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then the second part of it, I think Midnight is also free gas, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So it's reducing costs, driving up revenue, keeping a privacy layer. And it was just cool. It was cool to see that at the other big partner there, which made people really go, oh, where's XRP? Stellar Lumens. Huge tokenization booth right next to Algorand, which is giving out free coffee. So very interesting conversations that we're rolling out. I'm very excited tomorrow. If you guys haven't already, hit that like button. All right. Subscribe though, and turn those notifications on. If you're on your phone, turn it sideways, hit that bell button, turn it back on, because tomorrow, I don't know if it's going to be an 8-hour live stream. It very well might be. Everybody from Larry Fink to the CEO of NVIDIA, Ondo Finance just announced that they'll actually be out there. There's the Ondo plug, even though we're not paid by Ondo or Cardano. We're just maxis on these
It's
channels.
like strong projects.
Strong projects. They will all be speaking tomorrow at this huge conference. So we'll be covering that live with you.
We do got a couple questions. Will Snake outperform ADA? I actually just got a case of the new Snake Energy. So if I can remember, I'll bring a can tomorrow. We'll do a live taste test. The ADA midnight stuff, I'll probably work on a Cardano video this week. And someone was asking about ETH. We're going to talk about ETH in a second, but it's also going to be tonight's upload. So if you're not following the channel, make sure you hit subscribe, and also make sure you turn on the notifications. You can see when we go live. You can see when we upload videos. But now let's do a little dark story here in crypto. You know, DZ likes the crypto crime. Sometimes it's vampiric romance. Sometimes it's crypto crime. So teens kidnap a Las Vegas man at gunpoint.
Oh, no.
$4 million in crypto. And these were freaking teenagers. And I'm not even talking about 18, I'm talking about children. This child trio told the victim they had his dad and would kill him. I'm going to kill my mom. I'm going to kill your dad if you don't fork over the passwords to your accounts. And so 3 teenagers, they're accused of kidnapping this man at gunpoint after he was returning from a crypto event in Las Vegas, before they drove him an hour into the desert and robbed him of $4 million in crypto and NFTs. According to the cops, this took place in November, and the victim had finished hosting the event in downtown Las Vegas. When he returned home, they forced him into a vehicle and drove him to a remote desert area an hour outside the city. There, they forced him, hand over your passwords, according to the local news station there. After having his account drained of $4 million in crypto and NFTs, he then had to walk 5 miles through the desert uphill to reach a gas station where he could then call a friend for help. Shout out to having friends' phones memorized. Yeah. That's not. But look, 2 16-year-olds from Florida are facing charges including robbery, kidnapping, and extortion. The third teen, he left the country. Prosecutors say we can't see photos because they're minors there. I wish we could.
The 13's the only pro. That's the truth right there. There's one professional that got 2 locals to do the heavy lifting that are actually going to face the charges, and then he's going to walk away with most of the money. But
now, chat, type in the year. We're going to reveal in about 10-20 seconds. Josh, I want to guess. Type in the year the first crypto robbery took place. When's the first time someone had a crime, aka, give me your Bitcoin? Josh, what year?
Well, hold on. While chat's thinking about that, I do want to run this ad from our source. This is a great point, and this is why crypto security is so important. Cold storage is so important. Arculus, one of our channel partners here, you get 20% off of a hardware wallet if you use the code DC20. So I'm going to run this ad real quick. That'll give you some time to think about it and maybe even run and buy it. And we'll be right back.
I just wanted to take a quick second to shout out our sponsor, Arculus. They are a cold storage hardware wallet. Helps you secure all of your digital assets for the future. Just tap this thing to the back of your phone and boom, you're in. We wouldn't be able to do this without them, but also wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, the Disco fam. You've supported us a lot over the years. If you want to support the channel now, just use the code DC20. It gets you 20% off this card. It's the #1 way you can support this channel going forward. Thank you for your support. We'll see you at the top.
All right. What's the year? You have a guess, Josh?
Right, so first, a couple of these are kind of funny. 1944. All right. That one's maybe a little off there. Also like Bitcoin pizza.
Okay. What was the question one more time? Because there was a little bit of a cutoff there.
What year was there the first crypto crime? Crypto robbery.
2011.
Well, the first major one a little bit later. I do think there had to be some small ones, that we don't know about.
Silk Road,
well, I think everybody got burnt by their Silk Road dealer. I mean, could you count that? Hey, you didn't send me my mushrooms, man. But no, look at this. The first major crime, 2014. Someone tried to extort Hal Finney. Hal Finney had someone try to extort him of 1,000 Bitcoin, and at the time it was worth $400K. Does not look like it ended up happening. Hal Finney, I'm guessing, knew cybersecurity better than the criminals there. So I don't think he was just. I mean, we didn't just have crypto apps where we could just lose all.
Yeah, I definitely think someone got stolen or hacked or exploited on Silk Road before then. Like that, they're just. I don't know. Interesting story. I wonder where their sources are from. That was the first.
We
Was
do
it
have
major?
one of the Hardy Boys here. I'm sorry, I called you that.
That's
New
a
member.
different- That's a different spelling. Yeah.
I found you about 6 weeks ago. Have a good alt portfolio. Now he's up 10K.
Nice.
How do you handle taxes with short-term capital gains?
Don't pay him.
Joke.
No, obviously we're
Joke.
not tax professionals, guys. We can't actually legally give you tax advice. We do use, a lot of us use earnestly at decrypted.tax for handling things. But there's also Zen Ledger is a software. You can do things through Coinbase depending on where you have it. But generally speaking, when you go into dollars is when you need to calculate a lot of those things. If you're talking about trading between currencies, if it's within an exchange that you're doing all those swaps, usually they can track a lot of that stuff for you. But we'll have some tax professionals on to answer some of those questions. But generally, how do we handle it? I use decrypted.tax. I know a lot of people use various other tools.
All
for
right.
tracking.
And Green Day, you the Dookie, just gifted 5 Discover memberships. So we go
Hey.
live on Fridays where you ask every single type of question you could think of. I will answer you directly. We'll look at my stock portfolio and we'll look at some of the more deeper alts and meme coins that, maybe you just got to keep a little closer to the chest there. Now, I do want to share tonight, we're dropping an Ethereum video. There are chart patterns out there supporting Moonshot. I have an insane price target. It's over 6,900. That's all
Wow.
I'm not gonna give you the exact
I
number
swear to
there.
God, if it's 69,420.
Get me
but
excited,
A
man.
lot of it's going to be, this chart pattern right here. So we're going to look at that chart pattern. It's looking pretty good historically. We're going to kind of look at some on-chain metrics, and I might give you my 2025 ETH price prediction, but you got to have on those notifications. Josh, anything you wanted to share here?
No, hit that like button, turn on those notifications because we're going to be live again in about an hour and a half covering Paul Atkins going live for the first time as the new head of the SEC.
Crypto
Expecting some
roundtable,
breaking
right? Or
news.
digital asset
Crypto
roundtable or
roundtable.
something. Yeah, nice.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll be back, guys, live again this afternoon. Get those notifications on. Get ready to stack. Ask all your questions, and we'll be back shortly. And congratulations
Thanks for
again
all the
to BZ.
support. Thanks for all the support. Yeah.
All right,
I was going to do a raw joke,
It's
but
3 rings. Everybody's married on our channel.
ringed
That's
up. That's right.
family first here.
and now
That's how
DZ
you- this-
can
look,
do it
this is-
raw.
This is how you know it's
You're doing what, Rob?
people with quality decision making and thinking for the long term, right? We got good, strong principles. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, we got principles, and we're just high T individuals. But if you're
High
high T,
testosterone.
smash that like button. We do appreciate all the help from the Disco fam. Really does help us out in the algorithm.
right.
Turn on those notifications. I'll give you my ETH price target.
All right. See you guys soon.